Hello, everybody. I'm
What
Monty,
is up? Hi guys, I'm Daniel.
and we're here with
We
This Would
are
Know.
this physically distant but socially closer than ever would know.
And here's the thing. You may notice that we are not actually around the Would Know, that one of us may or may not have promised you would tour with every recording we ever did, even if we were traveling around the world. I don't know who would have promised you that,
Well,
but what
I
I want
haven't
you to
broken any
know
rules.
is that, and
I
I'm
haven't broken any rules because this is not a tour, so it's fine.
this is why you're my favorite. You just made my heart grow 10 times in size.
See, there you go.
But what I was going to say, which is cheesier and stupider than what Daniel said, is that you are the great would know of our hearts. And as long as we're sitting around with you, we're always around our would know.
Indeed.
Today,
It's like Asgard. The would know is not a place; it's an idea. It is the people.
yeah, it's a frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in my frame of mind, we have someone at this virtual would know who is a Grooms artistic associate, who was the actor manager for our first ever production of Much Ado About Nothing, who's played a huge assortment of roles, including Viola and Sebastian in Twelfth Night, because you know what? One of those roles isn't good enough for this person. We have the one and only Laura Piccoli right here with us on this would know. Hi, Laura.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining. How are you?
So social distanced. Does that make
Fair.
sense? And this is the first socially distanced Wooden O episode. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Though we are physically distanced. We are socially oh so close.
Indeed.
Oh,
Before we start, though, even though we are not in the physical wooden O, I do just have to make sure, is everybody near something that is wooden? Are we wooden adjacent? Are we wood adjacent? I'm at
I
a
am.
wooden desk.
Yeah, I've got. Well, I mean, this is. Well, first off, the shelf is kind of falling off, so I can actually show you. Can you see that? Oh, almost. Hold on. Let me zoom out a little bit. See this right there? My shelf is falling apart. This is fake wood. It's like fake
Okay.
Kmart wood.
that looks
Does that
at
count?
a piece of wooden plywood.
Yeah, but it's not
Just
real
hanging out.
plywood. It's particle
That's
board or
perfect.
something.
That'll work for me. I'm good with it.
And I want to make sure that everybody has a drink.
Oh, do
How
I?
kind of you.
Cool.
Mm.
Mine does in fact look like water, but it is alcoholic.
What is
We
it?
will believe you. Well, here we go. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Just saying, that's a
Nice.
lot of tequila, Laura.
It's actually about this much of a Grey Goose.
Oh.
That much.
That's a decent amount. Like we mentioned earlier in the posts, if you saw on social media earlier, we are doing this live all access episode of Wooden O, so you are more than welcome and actually encouraged to chat with us in the window. I just want to quickly shout out Bruce Pingree,
Oh,
who is
Bruce!
tuning in all the way from Kittery, Maine. Always nice to see you, Bruce. Hope you're doing safe. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, Bruce, I love you so much. And I'm so glad that you are sitting on a wooden bench. Thank you for being with us. Oh! Victoria is on the chat. Or you're not on the chat window, are you, Laura?
Oh no, I'm not. I
I'll
thought
translate for you. Victoria says that you're drinking
Victoria!
straight water. Haha, heart.
Victoria, I love you. You're wrong. It's a little bit of vodka.
I love that we're starting off with drama. Like, just kicking off these virtual wooden O's with some, people will write doctoral theses. Is those words?
Yes, that is correct. I will allow it.
Thank you.
As the holder of the whiskey, which in these strange times is tantamount to jurisprudence, I will allow it.
I've literally only had the sips that you've seen me had of this, but I have the weird echo of myself in my ear, so I feel like I'm falling down a tunnel at all times.
So let's jump right on into it. So Laura, for those who do not know, in addition to being an associate artist at Rude Grooms, you are also not just a very talented actor, but in all the productions that I've been in with you, you seem to always wear a ton of hats. Can you briefly rattle through all of the different things that you have done in different productions of late?
Sure. So like Monty said, I have been involved in Rude Grooms since the very beginning. And I've worn the hat of actor manager, costumer, actor. Monty, what would you call somebody who just carries all of the stuff up and down from your apartment and to the parks?
A good person.
I'll take that title.
A deeply kind and hardworking human.
Yeah, physical labor.
One of the things that I've always been impressed by, though, in all of your work is that you seem to be always so efficient and capable without a lot of fanfare. There have been, in the productions that we've worked on together, you seem to be the person who, whenever there is something that needs to be done, by the time that I'm realizing, like, oh, we need to take care of this, we need to do this, we need to do this in that particular moment, you will very calmly and politely just come up to me and be like, so I already took care of that and those other three things. And so now I'm just kind of like hanging out, but let me know what it is that you need. Like, I'm constantly blown away by your work ethic. And it's something, as a habitual procrastinator and not the greatest planner, I would like to emulate. So can you talk a little bit about where that comes from?
Oh, thanks, Daniel. I think where that comes from is just knowing how little time we have to put this up. And, as sort of a startup theater company, there are only so many people who are behind the scenes. And that just means that you just have to pick up all of the jobs that you can. I think that's it, really. It's out of necessity and out of love for this company and for everybody who's involved in this company. And yeah, that's it.
Have you always had that kind of a work ethic, or is that something that is newly developed since working with Rude Grooms? Yeah,
I think throughout undergrad, when I was studying drama, I did have that work ethic as well. Mm-hmm. Specifically when it came to studies that were related to drama, because I also studied other subjects as well. But it's new in the sense for the Rude Grooms. I had never worn a lot of these hats. Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It tapped out there for a second, but it's back now. Can you just back
Tap
up a
out.
little bit less?
I'm going back up. Sweet. Where did it cut me out?
The last thing I heard was ever since undergrad, you'd sort of been used to wearing all of these hats, and I think you were about to start explaining why.
Cool. Let me back up. In undergrad, I had a pretty intense work ethic when it came to my studies that were related to drama, because I did study other subjects as well. But coming to Rude Grooms was when I started wearing a lot of hats that I hadn't before, like costumer and quote unquote director, which we call an actor manager. It's not quite a director, but those are hats that I hadn't worn before. And just out of necessity, I picked them up and started putting them on to whatever end.
So you had never done those sort of things before? Those were your first time jumping in? Because I would not have guessed that working with you.
Thanks, Daniel.
So
Yeah.
how did you go about figuring your way through or sort of navigating territory that you had no prior experience in?
Again, it was, I mean, definitely for our first show for Much Ado, it was out of necessity. I mean, we needed costumes and we didn't have anybody doing them. And there were certain roles that I was like, oh, I'll do that because that sounds like fun. So I went out and I got everybody army outfits. And then I realized like I like shopping for the company and creating an aesthetic that helps to tell the story. So, and there were certainly roles that Monty needed filling that I was like, I can't do that, and have less interest in trying to learn how to do that, like a little bit of the producing side. He's sort of a magician when it comes to that. And Monty also, I mean, this is also a really good question for Monty because he also wears countless hats when it comes to Rude Grooms.
Well, before...
Monty.
Yeah, I'll just say before we get to me on that, I just want to show you some of, and you won't see the picture that I'm showing them, but this is one of our promo photos from Much Ado with the military uniforms that Laura found and put together. It's the three of us with me doing the bunny ears behind.
That's my favorite.
Right? Yeah, that's a good photo. That was, I think, my profile picture for a long time.
Yeah, and I think that's what's the most exciting. Because you may not have had experience doing it, but you had passion and clarity and drive for it. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that I always think it's really important for actors to work in environments like this is to see how their creativity and passion can manifest in ways that are not what we're used to and not what we're always asked to do, and in ways that do give us a little more authority than we're usually afforded in the traditional structure of the industry. And I think, yeah, I don't know, it's also just so exciting to see an artist doing something brand new, but that's still connected to that core impulse that they work with in new ways. I don't know if that answers what you wanted me to talk about on it, but
yeah. I think if there had never been a need for somebody to do costumes, and Monty literally at that point could not have been stretched thinner. I mean, he was juggling so many roles in the company. But yeah, I mean, I love doing costumes. I love the physical labor of carrying the tents and setting them up and breaking them down every day. And it's really gratifying to be on the backside of acting. And that's one of the reasons why Rude Grooms is special, because the actors do all of that work.
What about it in particular do you find gratifying? Like, what is it about that aspect of acting that does it for you?
What is it about the acting that is gratifying, or
just the doing the additional work of not so much producing, like you said, but in terms of the stage craft of it all? What is it that you came to really love and appreciate about that?
I think it was the sense of empowerment and the realization that I didn't need to be relying on. I mean, certainly I do rely on the rest of the company, and particularly the associate artists and the sharers, to take everything off the ground. But I could be part of the process of lifting it off and not having to rely on other people to give me an opportunity, but to be part of that process of making the opportunities.
Have you felt like that's been a particular challenge for you in other productions that you've been in where your job is just actor?
Well, Yes, in the sense that after graduating from undergrad in 2013, and I, like you guys, went to Tisch undergrad for drama. Um, However, in our studio, we weren't taught the craft of creating your own company and creating your own opportunities, really. And so I think that comes naturally to some people, and it didn't necessarily come naturally to me. So in the several years of being out of undergrad, as an actor, I relied on other people to write, produce, put together, cast me, and to now be a part of a process where I am part of the creative team is so liberating, and like I said, empowering, and I'm just really thankful to be a part of the company. And it's also given me, also given me confidence to now write my own projects and try to get those off the ground. So
I didn't know you were writing your own stuff.
yeah, I've dabbled.
You have to sign
not-
NDAs before you can talk about them.
Is that right?
Oh, about your
That's
projects?
not right.
Yes.
See, this is why
they're a big deal.
I defer to Monty's on the technical side of my writing.
Do you wait? I can't tell if he's being serious or not because I want to hear more about them. Is there any way that you can talk around what you're writing without getting yourself into legal trouble, either real or imaginary?
I'm cool, Monty. Is that right? Can I? I can talk.
I don't
I'm gonna
know.
talk about it.
I haven't read them because I haven't signed an NDA.
Okay, well, I think it's your work. You can do whatever you want to do. So,
Monty has read them
I've read,
and has given me really important and helpful feedback.
okay.
So I
So,
actually
wait.
don't know if I'm. Monty?
No. I'm just being a Monty.
Oh, good. Thanks for
This
the
is
clarification.
this is the hard part about doing this over the internet because if we were sitting at the actual table, I could just be like, "You're full of nonsense."
Yeah.
Hang on.
You would smell the dad jokes coming off of me rather than
Correct.
having to interpret, is this just Monty being stupid or is
Right.
this intentional?
Exactly.
Just give me the benefit of the doubt and assume that I'm intentionally stupid.
Okay, there we go. So wait a minute. So the experience of getting to wear several different kinds of hats empowered you as an artist to start following in that same vein of creating your own work, including writing things that you hadn't previously written before. So talk a little bit about what it is that you're writing, because that's new to me. I did not know that was a thing that you did or are doing.
Yeah, I think I've been considering writing for several years, but kind of didn't trust my voice as a writer. Certainly didn't trust my voice in dialogue, but was even trying to find my aesthetic as a writer and what subjects I was interested in. So in 2018, I went back to school to get a master's in energy and environment policy. And part of the reasoning behind that was to, one, pursue an area of knowledge that I had been interested in since undergrad and that I really cared about and was my side passion to acting. But it was also to gain more knowledge about the subject so that I could start writing projects. So acting opportunities that were related to environmental science.
Mm-hmm.
So last semester, I wrote my first short script, and it is inspired by an educational trip that I took to Bolivia in 2018. And Bolivia has a really large indigenous population, and one of their main beliefs is in Pachamama, aka Mother Earth. So I wrote sort of a little fantasy script that was a celebration of Pachamama, while also realizing that I'm a young white lady from the United States, so that might be complicated.
So how did you end up over the course of writing this? Did you write this while you were in Bolivia or after you got back?
No, like long after.
Okay. And then so for the source material, just to make sure that you were like faithful to the indigenous people whose story you were helping to tell, did you go back and like do research, or how did you craft all of that when it came to the process of writing it once you were no longer there? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I have started research into the history of Bolivian filmmaking and the tradition of Bolivian filmmaking. But I also sent the script to my professor who lives in Bolivia, who's more of an authority on that subject than I am, just to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting anything about the culture. So that's where that process is right now. I'm just sending it out to friends and to get feedback, and Monty's also provided some feedback on that, and also helped me on the budget side of it, try to figure out what it would take to actually make that piece.
And what is the goal to make it more of a full length thing, or are you going to keep it as a short? Do you have that idea in mind?
Yeah, right now it's a super short, and that's sort of all I'm interested in doing right now with this particular piece.
Mm-hmm.
But that could, of course, open doors down the line.
So I'm very curious to hear a little bit about, you said you had difficulty at first finding your voice or finding dialogue that you wanted to do, or like to get started writing. Now, when it came to learning other new skills that you were talking about with this Would Know, you said you sort of found those as a matter of necessity. These were things that just had to be done. But this, to me, sounds, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds more like a passion project. So when you're not operating from a place of necessity, what are your first steps? How do you get started?
I think with this script and with some of the other things that I've started writing, they are images in my brain that keep on coming back to annoy me and that demand to be written onto a page.
Oh, wait, give me an example.
Well, like this particular script starts with two young girls running through the cloud forests of Bolivia, which are like stunning and otherworldly, and they're full of giant ferns the size of trees, and as a celebration to the plant life in Bolivia, this image of this forest and these girls just kept on bothering me. So in a good way, but I put it down on paper. Mm-hmm. And then figured out, well, what would come next? The little girls would find a woman in the forest, and she's an indigenous woman, and maybe she's also Pachamama. And what do they do when you come across Mother Earth in the woods? I don't know. You might take her home to have breakfast.
Oh, I love that. What do you? Is it too much of a spoiler of the play to ask what you would feed Mother Earth if you brought her home for breakfast?
Listen, the girls try to feed her normal food, and she's not into it. Yeah, who wants to eat breakfast cookies if you're Mother Earth? You know. So
that's a fair point. I feel like you'd have to do, if you brought Mother Earth home for breakfast, you'd have to really do something special.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Now, how does this, or does it at all, refuel itself into your acting work? Do you find that branching out into these other areas of artistry informs your sense as an actor, or are they separate for you?
It's funny because originally the idea to start writing things was so that I could write projects that I wanted to personally act in. Whether or not that's selfish, I don't know. Make your own flat platform,
Yeah. Make your own work so that you can put yourself in it. I don't judge. Do it.
Yeah. But after writing this script, and knowing that I will not be acting in it if it does get made, has also been deeply gratifying to be able to create something that is certainly for myself to test my skills and expand myself as an artist, but also creating it knowing or hoping that other people will flourish. Yeah.
Does that?
Monty, I feel like we gotta push, because you also write, and you have written a lot and published some of your writing.
I'm not the one being interviewed on this episode. You have to tune in next week for that.
He's here all the time. This is about you.
I thought this was supposed to be a conversation.
This is a conversation, but you're just infinitely more interesting than either one of us. So I'm just gonna ploy you with questions as you continue to get inebriated, and then we'll stumble onto some deeply profound truths and fix the universe, which is the point of the whole show.
And look, I'm here to make really stupid, inappropriate dad jokes at inopportune moments. So just keep going, and I'll be there. I'll be there. Don't worry.
I do, though. I find it interesting the way that your process changed, where you said you initially wanted to start writing so that you could write for yourself. So again, we're coming back to that sense of self-starting and not wanting to rely on anybody else. But with this particular project, which seems like it's been your focus as a writer for a while now, you've had to consciously figure out what it would mean to write something that you would not be in. Do you find that changes the way that you think when you sit down to write? Is it sort of all the same process?
I think it's certainly freeing, because I don't have to imagine myself in the piece, which means that I can try to respectfully write other people's stories, or write whatever I want.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that is really, really fascinating to me. So with the writing, and then in grad school now, do you find that you still have opportunities to do as much acting as you would like, or is this sort of becoming where the shift in focus is going?
I've been really fortunate to be involved in Grooms while I've been working on my master's, because that means I've frequently had either acting work or behind the scenes work. So when it comes to Grooms, if I'm not acting in the production, I'm certainly helping on the production on the backside. And it has also saved me a little trouble of going to tens of auditions, tens, hundreds, I don't know. To be able to find your artistic family, and to be able to continually create art with them is such a gift. And I say that from a place of not having had an artistic family before being adopted by Monty and this Shakespearean crew. And now I get to create a lot of art with my buddies who I love being around.
Out of curiosity then, so I mean you've worked with the same artists multiple times before. So what is the difference between an artist who you work with on again, off again, and an artistic family? Like, how does that manifest to you?
Again, I think it comes back to the being a part of the planning process, and the creative team. And I would also say to Victoria, if you're still watching, I also came across a family of artists that were out of SUNY Purchase, and I was lucky enough to sort of be bounced around their community when they were creating their senior project films. So that was sort of similar, except that I didn't play an artistic role in the sense of getting those projects off the ground. I was just lucky enough to get to work with that crew over and over. But having an artistic family, I think, involves being involved in the planning process.
Was that something that you found initially intimidating, or was it something you were able to really sink your teeth into right from the beginning?
I found it intimidating in the sense that because I was being asked or forced to, not forced, but forced by necessity to don all of these roles, I certainly didn't think I was the most qualified person to be taking on all of these roles, but I happened to be the person that was there at the time. And that was going to do it. That was going to be enough to make it happen.
See, and I love that. I love that short jump, because I feel like with so many in particular capable people, this is a thing that I've been experiencing a lot in terms of conversations, is this sense of imposter syndrome. There's so many people who get into a role or a position and just like, I'm not qualified to do this, or there's somebody who's more talented than me, there's someone who's more capable than me. But I love that you just took it as, well, I'm the one who's here and this needs to be done, so I'm just gonna do it. Did you find that, did that erase any sort of sense of anxiety, or was it still there and you just kind of had to push it to the side and be like, no, I don't have time for you because we have deadlines?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a mixture. There are certainly times where Monty has come to me and said, are you doing costumes for the show? And I go, Monty, once you hire somebody else, you're going to figure out that other people are better at this than I am. So the not the fear that I am underqualified, but maybe the knowledge that I am underqualified is still with me, but hasn't gotten in my way of doing the job.
Yeah,
and also I don't know if it holds up at this point, because how many shows have you done costumes for to date? I don't even know if the argument is still valid.
That's exactly what I was about to say. And to speak very specifically about our company, one of the reasons that it would take a very specific type of costume designer to work within the structure that we set and that we require, right? Because it's actor-led, it's not director-led, it's not designer-led, and there's a whole lot of there are a whole lot of things that are standard in other rooms that aren't standard for us that you thrive with. And then even just stuff as simple as we have to design half of our costumes from stock every time, and nobody knows what that stock is other than you. So there are, but it is fascinating that even despite having kind of become such a pro, not just at the costume design in general, but at costume design for this very specific environment that has really difficult demands in terms of how much space there is to fit the stuff into a car, matched with how many actors and role changes there are, that it still doesn't, that it seems to us like you're so overqualified, and to you still feel underqualified. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Would you say, this is a question that I've been curious about that's come up recently. Would you say that you are somebody who prefers or even thrives under pressure, or ideally would you prefer a more relaxed environment?
I think it depends on the role.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to acting, I certainly love to take my time and take that script apart piece by piece.
And what the hell are you doing in this company? Good Lord.
But I think it's also really important to confront your desperate fears of not having enough time to do the job right. And you just got to do it right anyway. So.
Well, I ask because, you know, there are some people, you know, when we talk about how this process works and the short amount of time that we put things together, you can see the panic in their faces where they're just like, I could never. A full 90-minute play that's all actor led and managed within 10 days of rehearsal. No, there's no way. Whereas I feel like over the course of this conversation, what's come out is you just sort of like, nope, it's got to be done. So we have to do it. No other alternative. And we're just going to figure it out. And you seem to have these unraveling layers of skills and talents that come out under pressure. So I'm just wondering if, like, is there a part of you that you're aware of that sort of derives a little bit of joy from, like, we only have a couple of days to get this together. Can I do X, Y, and Z thing? Challenge accepted.
Yes, Daniel, I want to answer this question, but I also want to turn on the light because all of my lights have gone out.
Oh, no. Okay, go.
Hold on 1 second for all of you people who are watching.
Yes.
I think it might be a nice idea that you can see me.
Well, it's like your camera is going into, like, it looks like we're in like a 1930s like Bauhaus film, because it started to turn green and really like lots of grain, and it was like, ooh, this is a Bauhaus horror film. It was really stylish. I thought you were making a design choice yet again, overqualified, but
no, I was just counting on the natural light, which has now failed me because the sun goes down. So
wait, does it? I don't know. Time is an illusion.
Time is a little hard to track these days. That's true.
Look, every day is Corona Day. That's all I know about time anymore.
Every day is today.
Yes.
And
well, no, that's not true. That is patently not true. There have been days that are not today, and there will be days that aren't today.
But those days when they happen are today for that day.
I'm not sure about that anymore.
We're getting sidetracked.
I'm not sure about that anymore.
My mind is
Chime in the
bending.
comments. Chime in the comments.
Yes, chime in.
Is
in
today
the
always
comments.
today? I don't think it is anymore.
Is today? Let us know. Meanwhile, Laura's going to talk about whether or not she enjoys a high pressure environment and if she actually does thrive under pressure. Go.
Okay, so I would say that I don't really enjoy a high stress environment. I'll take a low stress environment any day. But what this has caused me to work on is my perfectionism and being okay, not only being okay with getting things done now because they need to get done, but they might not be exactly what I want them to be. But at least they're done. and it's out in the public and it's happening. And I mean that for my costume design. I mean that for when I actor managed, and I also mean that for my acting as well. You only have so much time to put this story up, and what the audience is going to get from me in that amount of time is all that I can give. And if it's not exactly where I want it to be, well, cool. That's what they're going to get anyway. So that's been liberating for me, because I think part of the reason why I didn't trust my voice as a writer, I didn't trust my voice as an artist, or however you want to put it, was the fear of perfectionism.
How long did it take you, as someone who always wants more time to get everything just so, how long did it take you to sort of let that go?
I think it's still a work in progress. Over the past couple of years, it's certainly improved, and it has certainly improved with the Rude Grooms process. Because I wear so many hats, like there's only so much time for me to work on my script. And yeah, and then you have to go on stage, and it has to be what it's going to be.
Yeah. I think that is so important, not only to hear, but to remember. I think, Monty, correct me if I'm wrong. We had this conversation a few episodes back where we were talking about getting in the headspace of not having enough time, or feeling like you don't have enough time. I think it was with the episode with Deb, where she was talking about how she had to go to several different auditions that were last minute, all in the same day, and certain things take priority. But there's that recurring theme of, you do the best you can with the time that you're given, and then once you're there in the room, it does not do you any good to stress about what it could have been, because this is what's here now.
I almost think for me it's bigger even than that, in that it's like, if you think there is a time at which it's going to be the best it's ever going to be, I think you're wrong, because like, especially in theater, like, you're not going to maintain, it's going to vary still. But I think maybe even more fundamental than that is this, like, to me, there's a big difference in people who are about process and people who are about product.
Explain.
People who are about the continued growth and exploration of a piece of text, or this line gets a laugh best when delivered this way, exactly this way every night. The people who are like, there is a perfect version of this play, and our job is to get there, set it, and never alter anything. Or the people who are like, these are people living truthfully under imagined circumstances, and it's my job to mine that as truthfully as I can every night in ways that surprise me and that are unexpected. And to me, that I almost am not sure that we should call those two things. I think we should have different names for them, because I think they're so far apart from one another. And I think to me, it's why I love and am so passionate about what we do with Rude Grooms, is it forces people into the process mindset. I think we are often trained towards the product mindset, because we are trying to get jobs to a large extent. Like in certain elements of this business, you really are kind of like a piece of merchandise that has various value in terms of your marketability and your ability to draw audiences or other people. And we are so commodified, even as human beings and artists. And I think it's so sad and tragic that is how much of training treats us, and then I have felt has treated me, and then what that has started to make me think about myself and feel about myself. And for me, the couple of times I had earlier on that had environments like this that kind of didn't give you the opportunity to strive for product because that was just never going to be on the table because there wasn't time or it wasn't the type of thing, had a foundational freeing and confidence building and joy filling effect on me. So I think that's a very long ass roundabout response to that idea.
I think you are right though. I have noticed a difference in this kind of a process, and Laura, feel free to chime in as well. Even after doing Rude Groom shows, when I've gone on to do other work that is more product oriented than it is about the process, one of the things that I found is that this sort of process makes the rehearsal period for those other kind of shows more freeing, because with rehearsals and other shows, it can sort of be like you can feel the energy when people are searching for a product. Like when everybody's just trying to get it right and we're trying to like build this picture that someone designed, like someone envisioned in their head, and we're trying to work around it. Whereas now I go into those sort of rooms and I feel like I found that sense of play again. It's like, oh, this is my time to explore and pick and poke and prod and like see what's over here and then figure this thing out over there, and then not worry about having to get it right. Because I've learned that like if you can put on an entire 90-minute production of a classic Shakespeare show and have it be well received in 10 days, you'll get there with 4 weeks. You'll get there with 6 weeks. That's not a thing you have to worry about. Do you feel the same thing in different rooms that you've been in, Laura, since working on Rude Grooms type stuff?
You mean in the sense of the where has the play gone, and
just sort of
product versus process?
Yeah, and just sort of trusting that real focus and dedication on the process will get you to the quote unquote product.
Yeah, yes. In the sense that if you're focused on process, you're discovering something real in the moment. And when you're focused on product, it's not happening in the moment. It's happening because it worked last night. And when I've done film, I love doing film because it has to be moment to moment, or the audience will be able to see it because they are right up in your face. So you can try to make a product with film, but it's just going to come across as false. However you're feeling in the moment is how you're feeling. And that has to be what it's going to be. But it's also the same with theater. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
So as we, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's cool, Daniel. You go.
Well, I had one thing I want to ask, which is having gone from obviously had an appreciation for an interest in costuming, then going into being responsible for the design and the maintenance of the wardrobe. Are there things that you as an actor wish you had known when you were earlier in your career and working with costume designers? Or are there things that you wish that all actors knew but don't? That opened up for you?
Things that I've learned by being a costume designer, you mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of somebody's time. So take care of your goddamn clothes, people. Actors, take care of your costumes. What are you doing? You're supposed to look good. I'm trying to help you look good. Yeah, I think there's still a lot of things that I have to learn as a costume. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. I'm not sure if it was. I'm not sure if it was an issue on my end.
I think it was just on your end because I only heard a hiccup on you. I still had Laura going.
Oh,
great. So I'm just going to turn off the Wi-Fi on my phone and see if that makes a difference. Because the last thing I heard was "Take care of your damn costumes, people. What's wrong with you?"
I think we can hear that one more time. I think that's a fair.
Take care of them, people.
So as we get ready to wrap up, you mentioned grad school. Are you how close are you to being done? What is next on the horizon for you?
So this is my last semester, and right now I'm working on my thesis, and then I'll graduate. At a very strange time in the job market. So I wish I could say I knew what was next. But I don't know what jobs will be available once we're allowed out of our houses again. And I know so many people are in the same position.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if, in an ideal situation, would you want to focus more on the environmental policy work that you've been working on, or do you think do you have like an itch to sort of redouble your efforts in the acting world, or find some sort of hybrid between the two?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If acting suddenly took off, if all of the stars aligned and that was in the cards for me, whether now or in the future, I would drop this side gig of environmental science, and I would see where that sort of acting path would lead me, because that's been my childhood dream and adolescent dream and adult dream for as long as I can remember. So I certainly haven't given up on it, but it's a very tricky business. And I'm so fortunate that I have a side passion that is incredibly strong and gives me an enormous sense of purpose when acting is being fickle. And unforgiving.
It's such a beautiful way to frame it. I think like that is really important. Whether it's as big as having the investment that you've put into that line of grad study, or just something that like when acting is fickle towards you, you can have to invest your time in and remember that it's not all about that.
Yeah. I think that has certainly helped take some of the stakes off of acting, which I think I was going to say is only helpful, but maybe it's not helpful because it takes your time away from acting and auditioning and creating on the artistic side. However, it is also emboldened my artistic voice and also has made me a more well-rounded person, and therefore only better able to be an actor and to express the human condition in all professions, because actors are supposed to play professionals, but a lot of us haven't had professional jobs.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
That's really real.
Who was it? Was it Annika we were talking to on the podcast that was talking about, because of her political political science background.
Yeah,
that she
yeah.
was like really successful at certain types of roles in film and TV auditions.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember listening to that.
That's something
Yeah.
that's always really like I double majored in architecture and urban planning because that's my other big passion. But of course, that's as terrifying and unlikely to lead to success as acting is in terms of the numbers of those who end up becoming architects who make good money and those who end up becoming assistants or house builders for those. Not that there's anything wrong with being a house builder, just that's not the dream, right? Just as like maybe. Well, I'm going to stop that line of thought right there.
House builders, you are necessary and
House builders
important.
are amazing. I love houses, especially tiny house
listen
builders.
to
You're the
Monty.
best of all of them. No, I'm saying that I love house builders. Oh my God. This is why I wasn't speaking earlier, Laura. See what you've done?
Well, Daniel got me speaking about my like indigenous story, and I'm like, I have no right to tell somebody else's story. God, let's move on. So anyway, we've all embarrassed ourselves
it's,
today.
It's COVID brain. I was just talking to a friend on the phone earlier, and it's like COVID brain is a real thing. Like everything is much scarier. Speaking is much scarier. Breathing is much scarier. Sitting up from laying on the couch is so scary that I just generally don't do it. That is COVID brain. Generally, once I lay on the couch, I'm not getting up for days.
Agreed.
It's too scary.
hilarious.
You don't know what could happen. It's airborne.
It's not airborne.
It is literally airborne. That's why we
I
have
mean,
a 6-foot rule.
If somebody coughs in your face, God damn it! All right, Daniel, stop us from talking.
Okay, so I'm gonna save these two and read out some of the reactions from people in chat. I don't know why these weren't updating for me in real time, but I
they
was able
weren't?
to refresh the.
Oh, I thought they'd stop too.
Yeah, no, they apparently it's apparently a thing because I refreshed the page and then I've seen a bunch of new comments. So just
awesome.
very quickly from the lovely and talented Alexandra Lang, hashtag we are the great wooden O. Yes, indeed, Alex. Yes, we are. Also, hello. So nice to see you.
This is a virtual hug.
Shout out to Rude Groom sharer Deb Radloff, who says a very enthusiastic hi with all kinds of exclamations. Let's see. Oh, and then, of course, from Amber Elby, who says, I seriously never come on Facebook, but I made an exception for y'all. Bless you.
Oh, we love you, Amber.
Thanks,
see.
Amber.
Also, I don't know if I want to read this last one out, but I guess I have to now.
No, you have to.
Corey Lawson, whoever that is, says, Mr. Sutton, he says, Mr. Sutton has my vote. Today is today until tomorrow, which is then today, and then today is yesterday. Also, you're killing my isolated brain cells. I would say that I'm sorry for your brain cells, but you agreed with Monty, and that makes you wrong by default. So,
I think
no
that means the
sympathy.
world voted to call you Danny. I think we
Nope.
put out there was going to be a
Nope.
vote tonight. We didn't ask for a vote on this subject, and yet a vote came in my favor, which means that you're forever christened Danny.
I will leave this chat early, so help me.
Well, again, I will save myself again, and we have to get out of here in 2 minutes to get to Patreon. So we have to really quickly do recommendations.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Ooh, you should go first, I think.
Okay. This week, I am going to recommend Shakespeare Happy Hours. Is it a
What?
shameless plug? Yes, it is.
That's what I was going to recommend.
Okay, great. So this week, Monty and I are both recommending Shakespeare Happy Hours. Is it a shameless plug for a partnership that we're doing with our friends over at Seven Stages Shakespeare Company in New Hampshire? Yes, it is. Do I care? No,
we
because this is
don't.
the age of coronavirus, and we can do literally whatever we want because time is illusion, money's not real, and nothing matters. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have assembled an incredibly talented group of actors from all across the country and in the UK to bring you 90-minute virtual performances of Shakespeare's entire canon. This is 3 days a week at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to keep this going until we either A, get through the entire canon, or B, are allowed to go outside again, whichever one comes first. If you have not seen it thus far, we have so far done The Tempest, Cymbeline, The Winter's Tale, The Scottish Play, Pericles. I think I hit all of them. Was that all of them? We're gonna say I got all of them.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
There are more coming down the pike. We also a little bit of sincerity in these shenanigans of a recommendation.
I have
We
to get off
also
the screen
have
if there's sincerity. I'm going to go to just Daniel.
We also have there's a Patreon account that is associated with Shakespeare Happy Hours. If you decide to catch a viewing, of course, they are completely free. We really just appreciate your viewership, but that Patreon account is linked to the Shakespeare Happy Hours, and we do use the funds from that Patreon account to pay the actors in the production, many of whom had contracts canceled or were financially impacted by the physical distancing that we are doing now. So as you enjoy those performances and come to watch and hang out, please consider contributing to that Patreon account so that we can pay the wonderfully talented group of actors who have volunteered their time, and, help each other as a community make it through to the other side of this moment that we are in right now. So that's it. That's my plug. I'm done.
It was a beautiful plug. I agree. If you want to check out, you can go to ShakespeareHappyHours.tv. That's the website. It's also on YouTube. Channel's named Shakespeare Happy Hours, and on the Facebook. And since he stole my recommendation, I'm gonna recommend something that I realized just before we started broadcasting. Today, I don't know if some of you may have seen this. That Final Fantasy VII. The remake came out. I think it came out today or recently came out. And I was seeing online like all the amazing like footage and replay and how much joy it was bringing into people's lives. And I was like, oh man, I really wish I could just spend the money to download that on PS4. Like I've got the time. Like that's what I should do. But like we're in Corona times and like there's no income. It's like, well, I can't. Maybe I'll just put that on my wish list for once income starts again. And then when I was coming upstairs, I opened my mailbox, and lo and behold, what was in the mailbox? Final Fantasy VII, the remake. And I remembered that 2 years ago, or whatever, when it was first announced and put on Amazon for pre-order, I had bought it, and I sent my future self a little gift that I didn't know future Monty was going to need. And let me tell you, past Monty was very, very kind to me today. So my recommendation is send something to future you. You don't know when they're going to need it, but they probably do. So send away.
I love that. Laura, thank you so much for joining us for this first digital Wooden O. Please tell people where on the interwebs they can find you, because we all have so much time to discover new and interesting people these days.
Thanks so much, guys, for having me on this Facebook cast. I don't know. What do you call such a thing? What does one call such a thing?
We'll find out.
But is there a general place where people can keep up with you and find the work that you're doing?
Wow, totally missed that, Daniel. I mean, you can find me on my website, which is www.lauracpiccoli.com. I think that's the best place. Find me, people.
Perfect. She has thrown down the gauntlet. We are going to get out of here for this public live stream. However, we are going to continue hanging out on our Patreon page for about another half hour or so.
Oh, wow.
So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going to be super dope. I am going to refill this scotch, which has gotten pathetically low, and that's a problem.
This is my last sip of beer. Maybe I'll do the same thing.
So if you are a supporter on Patreon, head on over to the Patreon room and hang out with us. If you're not a Patreon supporter, maybe consider fixing that horrendous mistake in your life. Maybe consider fixing that mistake in your life and then you can come and hang out with us on Patreon as well, and we can tell you how proud of you we are for making such wonderful life choices.
I always knew you could do it.
I did too. In the meantime, my name is Daniel.
I'm Monty.
You can find
I'm
me
Laura.
and Laura's here.
Excuse me, Daniel.
The vodka has
I'm
finally
here.
kicked in. The vodka.
Y'all,
kicked
if you're not getting
in.
on Patreon right now, then you are going to miss an event. I don't know what's coming, but I can tell you it's going to be a storm.
You can find me and all of the tales in which Laura yells at me on Twitter and Instagram at the Daniel Kemper.
And I am on Twitter at Montgomery Sutto and on Instagram at Montgomery Sutton. You thought we were taking a break because of coronavirus. We were taking a break so I could actually learn my social media handles.
There it is.
Are you
That was
proud
the
of me,
real
Daniel?
reason. I am so proud. Could not be prouder.
I've been literally doing it 3 times a day, just waiting for this moment because I was like, I cannot mess up my own social media handles yet again after
There's
making
part
a
of me
big
that
deal of
actually
them.
really does believe that. Tune in next Saturday at 7 p.m. where we will go live again, and this time it will be This Wooden O, hosted exclusively by Daniel Kemper, where my guest will be some dude named Monty Sutton. I don't know.
God.
Whatever.
No one better
It's going
watch
to be
that.
my show, and it's going to be wonderful. Bye, guys.
Bye, Danny.
Done to death by slanderous tongues, was the hero that here lies, death and guerdon of her wrongs, gives her fame which never dies. So